Welcome to My Bible App. For those of you watching us on video and those of you in the class today, thanks for being here. We are in our second to last week in the series Miracle of Mercy. And what an exciting experience this has been so far. Right? Have you guys, I always like to ask for feedback, but I'm not going to do that today because I tend to get crickets, chirping, silence. But one of the big things that we've learned about in this series is forgiveness, and forgiveness is very important. But applying forgiveness, and one of the things we've been, talking through or I'm reviewing or continuing to remind you of is the importance of being at peace with yourself. Practicing mercy requires you to be at peace with yourself first. So these are great instructions that we're learning. There's great principles and truths that we're learning through this series. But quite frankly, stuff like this, you're 2 weeks out and everybody's already forgetting it. And the reason why is because we have programs and patterns in our life, and so we tend to go back and default to that. So we're going to keep working on that this year so that we can actually be in a position where we're practicing mercy because that's who we are. It's just the way we breathe. It's not something we're thinking difficultly or thinking about in a difficult way. It's not complicated for us. It's just something we're doing because that's who we are and we understand that about ourselves. So having said that, I have a question for you as I start out every week with this. What is kindness? Somebody tell me what you think kindness is. Wow, I'm impressed. Showing mercy? Showing mercy to people we don't like. Okay? What else? All right, we're going to say showing mercy to people we don't like. I have a really difficult time believing there's anybody in your life, Janet, that you don't like. You must like everybody, I thought. All right, what was the other one?
Being nice.
Being nice. Okay, being nice. What else? Any other thoughts? Okay, yes. I'm going to invoke a teacher thing. You can't use the word in the definition of the word. So I'm talking with you, but let's think of a different way to phrase that. Okay, content. There you go. Let's use that word. Content with ourselves. All right, good. Anybody else? Compassionate with a C-O-M? Okay, compassionate. I thought you were saying passionate. I wanted to I was just clarifying. That's all. I refuse to receive that false guilt. Generous? Generous. All right. Is that with a G? Generous?
Encouraging.
Honest? Encouraging? Encouraging, sensitive. Okay, what else? Accepting. Meeting the needs of others. Thoughtful. Yeah, we already did that one a couple of times. Non-judgmental. I'm not going to put that one up there. You might not have been here that day. Must not have been here that day. Well, several weeks ago, this came up in when I asked what is something, whatever one I forget which week it was. And non-judgmental came up. And I pushed back on that, and I'll push back on it again, because the Bible does not teach us to be non-judgmental. It doesn't teach us that at all. Our society pushes that on us.
Well, I think I work there now. Sorry.
She's learning quick. Don't let Dwayne get started. Okay, so I'm worried about my clip. It's broken. Make sure it's standing. Yeah. Considering others' feelings. Let's How about sensitive? Can we use that? Considering others' feelings, being sensitive, same thing? Thoughtful, yeah.
The opposite of meanness.
The opposite of meanness. Okay? Opposite of meanness. Being nice. Yeah, we have that one. There you go. Being nice. Okay, so... Huh? Acting out of love. Compassionate? Is that acting out of love? Perhaps. Okay, so we're kind of starting to repeat a little bit, I think. Yeah. Being patient. Patient with difficult people. Okay, I'll write patient down here. How about that? Okay. All right. Tender-hearted. Compassionate, tender-hearted, and sensitive. I think those kind of cover that. Yeah, but no, but kindness is not love, it's kindness. Love is love, kindness is kindness, right? See, but I'm doing that tongue in cheek. I'm just giving you a hard time because if you go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and if you pull out of kindness is under the category of love. So you're right, it's love, but love is a lot of things too. Love is patient, love is kind, love is lots of those things. Okay, so we're kind of going back around the horn now. So let's rein this back in. I have some definitions for you. You guys get ready to be awed, okay? And everybody, when I write this down, I want everybody to go, can you do that? Okay. In the Hebrew, kindness is this. Kindness is goodness and faithfulness in the Hebrew. Right? Big shocker. Did we kind of cover that over here? A little bit. All right. But I like this part of it. In particular, it deals with a zeal toward anyone. A zeal toward anyone. But it's contingent, as shown in mutual benefit. Yeah, zeal toward anyone as shown in mutual benefit. Okay, so what is zeal? It is an interesting word. What is zeal? Exuberance. Yeah. Enthusiasm. Passion, not compassion. Passion. But it's contingent. It's not just any kind of zeal, because if you continue studying this world, there is a negative connotation. It is zeal toward anyone, but in a revenge type of way. Anybody ever had that before in your life? You've done that with someone? You've been zealous toward someone in a negative way? No? Okay, you're a better man than I am. All right, but this one is as shown in mutual benefit. Sure. But I'm okay with that word. What if you were extremely positive towards someone in a way that benefits you? How about if you were extremely sensitive, extremely nice, extremely accepting, extremely content with yourself? Okay. What if you extremely met the needs of others or extremely was compassionate or thoughtful and so on? Does that fit?
I don't think we would.
Right. Exactly. So, one of the things about an application of mercy is that we've been, again, reminding as we get through each of these weeks, is that we pick and choose our mercy, don't we? Remember several weeks ago we were talking about someone you don't know, you run into and they're rude or they have bad habits of some kind or they do something rude to you or unkind in some way, and you're much easier to bless that person and let them go on with their life because you don't know them. and you don't know what's going on in their life, you don't know what their situation is, you could conjure up some image that maybe this person's had a bad day, they burned their mouth with their coffee this morning, or maybe they got into a fight with their wife or husband, or, who knows. There could be a myriad of things. Maybe they're dying of cancer. We don't know, right? So since we don't know, we give them the benefit of the doubt, we give them a pass, and we say, bless you, and we move on. But if my mother calls me again, or if my dad or my brother or if my boss comes in my office one more time and says, right, suddenly now we're not quite as merciful. It's a little more difficult. It's a little more challenging to practice mercy in that case. Why? Because that's something that we're dealing with on a regular basis. We come to a point in our life where we're fed up with it. I'm sick and tired of being treated this way or talked to like that, and it's not right and it's not fair, and I'm trying so hard, and blah, 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 blah. We all cry. I do. I may be the only one in the room. I'm sure I am, but I do. And it's in those moments where we come back to the idea of kindness as being a zealot toward anyone. Who does that include? Anyone? Does it leave anyone out? No. So being zealous toward anyone as shown in a mutual benefit. Sort of like the idea of do unto others as you would have them do to you, right? You want to be zealous towards someone in a way that you would want them to be zealous toward you. I mean, after all, don't we want to pass? Sorry, had a bad morning. Please have compassion on me today. Please don't take it personal. It's just my wife. Please don't take it personally. My kids, the dog, the whatever. The guy in traffic, and I allowed that to get to me, so blah, blah, blah. We want that pass. So, kindness is showing that same kind of zeal and passion towards somebody else. It's a mutual benefit. What's good for them is also good for me. How do we say that in our terminology today? This is ancient Hebrew, but how do we say it in our modern times? How about a win-win situation? Are you guys tired of hearing that phrase? It's a win-win situation. Now, there's a little piece of this that is tacked on here that I did not give you yet. There's a little qualifier at the end of the definition they put in parentheses. So this gives context now. This gives this context. So being zealotly generous toward anyone. Now we have context. Now the idea comes a little clearer. Zealously generous. Did we get that one in here? Who had this one? Who gave me generous? You did. You win the prize today. Ding, ding, ding. Okay? So, this is the Hebrew. Now, let's look at the Greek. What does the Greek tell us? The Greek word, I'm going to give you the Greek word because it's interesting to you. Can you guys pronounce that? Philanthropia. Philanthropia. What is philanthropia to you? It's just what Loretta said. Philanthropy. When we say philanthropy, what do we think of? Giving or generosity. Okay. It is this. Philanthropia means defined as love of mankind. Benevolence. Love of mankind, benevolence. That's philanthropia. Okay, so does this help us get some context of kindness?
No problem with mutual benefit. I'm just thinking about driving down the road. I let a guy in, being kind, and because of that, I don't make the light, and now I'm stuck, and I didn't benefit.
You didn't get in an accident.
I agree with that.
Okay. Okay, that's a great challenge. In that scenario, how does that it's this new microphone. In that particular situation, how does it mutually benefit you to yield and give the right of way?
Make your wife happy.
She's happy. That's true.
Happy wife, happy life.
Happy New Year.
Enough said? Well, here's the thing. I believe in this. This is what I teach my children. We do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. So I get my gratification or my satisfaction out of knowing that I do the right thing just because it's the right thing. People are always looking for that motivator or that reason. What's that reason? Why should I do? Okay, well, I may not be able to stand here and give you a great reason that you could have gone ahead of that guy, but you stopped and let them go first. How does that benefit you? It may not benefit you right there in that moment. But what it does do is it lets you become a person in life who practices kindness. Is there a negative to that?
Well, you could also say that that it's not necessarily mutual benefit, but it was still kindness. I did something nice. I didn't benefit, but so that's...
You practiced the love of mankind. Right? You were benevolent in that situation. So you practiced kindness. Okay, what's the negative in that for you?
Yeah.
There's nothing negative in that for you. You did some act of kindness, and what's the negative in that for you? There is no negative, so by default then, it's mutually beneficial. Now we're getting to it, see? That's what I count on Manny for. So if you practice a mutually beneficial act of generosity, or rather, sorry, let me back up. If you practice an act of generosity based out of benevolence for the love of mankind, can it have a negative or a disadvantageous effect on your life? Is that possible? Sure it is.
Just like Jesus did. If he was benevolent and generous to us, but he had to suffer for it.
It's true. He suffered greatly for it. Greatest suffering of all. But what was the ultimate reason that he did it?
Love of mankind.
Love of mankind. And what's the downside to that? So even if you suffer, even if something is wrong, okay, so now I got to tell you the story. Last night, my son, I was telling this story to Richard this morning. My son last night invited a friend of his to spend the night. His friend's name is Braden. Braden is a challenge. He's 7 years old. He's a nice boy. He has some cognitive disabilities, okay? And that's due to his birth mother's practice of drugs while she was pregnant with him, and so that's had that effect on him. He has trouble with certain things. He's trouble controlling his volume. He has trouble with his attention span. He gets bored quickly. It's things like that. He is definitely a follower in the crowd, not a leader. So he's hanging on with what all the other kids are doing, running around doing that kind of stuff. So he's a nice boy. He's not a troublemaker. He's not any of that kind of stuff. But he has these issues, okay? So my son and Braden play every day together, along with all the other kids in the neighborhood. Last night, Dad, can he spend the night? Sure, he can spend the night. Those two fought all night long. I was so ready for Braden to go home this morning. And not because of Braden, not because he's a bad kid or anything. It's just because, well, I'm getting old, number one. And come 7:30, I'm ready for it to be quiet and that sort of thing. And I get two boys roughhousing and that sort of thing, which that overall doesn't bother me. It's the fighting part of it that and I understand the reason why, because Josh gets frustrated with Braden. Because Josh, first of all, he's older. He's 8. Okay, and at that age, 8 and 7, there can be a big difference in maturity. But at the same time, we function in our house a little bit differently than other families do, and so we expect things out of our children that a lot of other parents don't expect out of their children. They default to, well, they're just kids. And I don't do that. So when my son gets out of line, I am stern with him, and I correct him, and I discipline that, and I expect him to step up and do something different than everybody else around him is doing. We never accept, well, my friends are doing it. I don't care what your friends are doing. This is what we do. But he responds really well to that. Unfortunately, my son takes that out into his world. Not unfortunately, but for his frustration, what causes some frustration for him is he takes that out into his world around him and he expects everybody else to be that way. And he's sorely disappointed. So we were experiencing that last night. Okay? Braden wants to do, Braden wants to do, Braden wants to do. Well, Braden always gets to do what he wants to do. I know, but he's your guest, son, and you do what your guest wants to do. This is the conversation this morning. But Dad, whenever I go to his house, we don't ever do what I want to do. We always do what he wants to do. I understand that, son, and that sucks. But does not change the fact that when he's the guest in your home, you cater to the guest. That's what good hosts do. It's good manners. It's proper. So we're going to behave that way in our home. But you also have to understand some things about Braden, and we've talked about some of his issues. He's a single child. That impacts a lot because he doesn't have any competition in his house, so he gets the run of the house. He's used to that. His parents, he's adopted, and so his parents, because of his history, are very overprotective of him, and so they're careful about how they don't put too much pressure on him. Don't expect too much. But then I also explained to Josh, you know what? You have these expectations that are very high, that Braden's not able to reach. You need to adjust your expectations so that you're not so frustrated with him. But Dad, you expect me and you tell me that you expect more of me. That's right, I do. But do I expect you to go out and make a living and pay the rent and buy food for our family? Well, no. You know why? No. Because you're not, well, because I'm a kid? Yeah, because you're a kid. Because you're not capable of that. I don't expect you to rise to that level. Now, you can read at a 7th grade level right now. You're capable of that. I expect that of you because that's what you're capable of. I don't expect more of you than what you're capable of. But I'm not going to let you settle for less than what you're capable of either. That's my position with you because I'm your father. You're not Braden's dad. So back off. Let his dad do that with him. That's not your job in life. Be his friend, not his dad. So you need to realize that Braden's only capable of this. You're expecting this. And when he doesn't rise to that, you're frustrated. Who created that problem? Braden or Josh? Josh created that problem. So you need to adjust your expectation levels, and then when he doesn't finish the game because he got bored, and now he's off doing something else, and you're frustrated because you practice, I finish what I start, then you don't have to go sit in the corner and write numbers. That's what he did last night. I'm done with Braden, and he went in the corner. My son likes to write numbers. I don't know what that is about with him. Some little... Okay. So he's got this thing about numbers. So he goes and sits by himself and grabs his notebook and just starts writing numbers and ignores his friend. You can't do that, Josh. Okay. Why am I telling you this story? Because Manny brings up a good point. I'm teaching my son kindness, right? Is it costing him? Sure. But yet there's a mutual benefit. And what's the mutual benefit? Even though there's a price being paid, what's the benefit for Josh? Friendship. Right? What was the benefit for Christ? Us. We become one with Him. That's the benefit. Does that benefit Christ? Sure it does. Does it benefit us? Sure it does. Did He pay the price for that? Yes, He did. Do we have to pay the price for that? No, we don't. That's awesome. That's really awesome. But yeah, kindness can cost you, but there's still going to be a mutual benefit in that cost. Man, do you have anything you want to add to that? Okay. All right, so that's some context around kindness. Now, let's get to the fill in the blanks. Talk about some of this stuff. There's a bunch, so I'm going to start a little earlier than I normally do. We are going to be starting on page 104. These are kind of long. Number 1. Yes. Make the first move. Don't be the one to sit around and wait for somebody else to be kind first. I mean, and this is something, if you've read any scripture at all, you've probably heard this or come across this idea that Jesus put forth. Not waiting for other people to do it is sorry, I got do unto others in my mind. That's not what I was going for. Now I lost it altogether. Give me a second. I'll back it up. Make the first move. Maybe I have a note to myself in here. I don't. No. Well, anyway, the importance of making the first move is this. If you wait for somebody else to do it, oh, I know what it was. It's easy to be kind to other people when they're kind to you first, isn't it? Yeah. So, where's the value in being kind to those who are kind? Not that there's no value. But the real value comes, the real mutual benefit, and so now I guess, now that I think about it, it goes back to this point we were just talking about. The real mutual benefit is that you get the satisfaction of being kind to somebody who's not kind to you. I think there's value in that from the standpoint of you get to lay your head down on your pillow at night knowing that you've done the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Because when you are kind to the world around you, you're helping to create a better world around you. And as you're creating a better world around you, does that feed back to you in a positive or a negative way? Usually. Positive. Because if the world around me is becoming a better place, and I'm in that, then I get the benefit from that better place, don't I? So it may not be the one circumstance or the one incident every single time that you benefit from. But as you practice this, and you're doing it on a regular basis, and it's influencing others to do the same, gradually all of those around you become kinder and kinder, and you then ultimately benefit from that. So it's proactive to make the first move. Instead of waiting on, let's do it this way. If you waited on everybody else to be kind to you, how long would you be waiting? Forever. But when you initiate and you're kind to people, what generally happens? They're kind back. So if you want kindness from others, guess what the best way is to get that? Make the first move. You be kind to them. I often look for those kinds of little things all the time. Going into Starbucks, right? And the line is a disaster in there. I don't know who designed those stores. But when they're busy and there's a long line, nobody knows who's in line ordering and who's in line picking up. So everybody's talking to each other about, are you guys in line? Are you standing in line? Well, yes, I am standing in line. But I'm not standing in line to order. I'm standing in line to pick up. And if you don't make that distinction, sometimes the line to order gets really long behind the line to pick up. Right? So that can be a mess. So I kind of become the line cop when I go. And I have that situation. And I'm paying attention. Not that I'm controlling and telling everybody what to do, but because most of the time I'm going, oh no, please, go ahead of me. That's fine, take my place in line. I don't mind. I'll wait. My wife's still walking in from the car anyway, and she takes forever, so go ahead. That's fine. I'll blame her. No. But I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with letting somebody cut. How many of you have had people cut in front of you in line before somewhere in a store? Right? You're standing in line, clearly you're the next one at the register, and somebody just right in front of you. And how many times have you wanted to just pop them right in the back of the head and go, how rude is that? Yeah, and I've done that before. I never popped them in the back of the head, but I've said something to them. Hey, what do you think you're doing? I've made a nuisance of myself, and I've made a scene in public more than once. Doing stupid things like that. Not anymore. I don't see the value in that anymore. Now, is someone cut in line, and the person behind me is like, did you see that? I'm like, yeah, I know. Well, whatever. And I don't say anything. The person behind me is probably mad. I don't care. Let this person go in line. Is it really worth, I got things to do. I got places to go. Just hurry up and get your thing done so I can go. I'm not going to stand here and make an issue out of it. Okay, that's a small thing. I know the bigger the issue gets, the more difficult it is to be tolerant that way and to put up with that kind of stuff. But here's the reality is that when you practice and you're proficient at it at smaller things, it becomes easier to do with the bigger things. Okay? So practice making the first move. Next, face it. This is like a subset of number one. Face it. In other words, what his point here was on this one is don't let a problem get away from you in terms of ignoring it. Okay, if you just ignore the problems, they don't go away. You got to face things. All right, and that's an important thing to do. And making that first move is part of doing that. All right, but the next one, number two, is ask God for wisdom. Very important. Ask God for wisdom. Now, guys, keep in mind the context of this. What they did is what Rick Warren did on the video is he went, kindness is part of mercy. Well, let's put that in the context of love your enemy. And the whole thing, this whole week is about love your enemy. Okay? So, and that's fine. So some of this, if you don't understand that context, may not make sense. So what he's talking about here is if you're having a problem with another person in your life, you want to face that issue with them, and you make the first move, and you go to them. Don't wait for that problem to resolve itself. Don't wait for that person to come to you. If you know you've done something to offend somebody, and they're angry with you, or they're upset with you, and they're offended with you, go to them and get that resolved. Okay? Christ refers to that, mentions that in Matthew chapter 5, verse 23 and 24. When he says, if you have a problem with a conflict with a brother or sister, go to them and get that resolved. If you come to bring your offering to the altar, you come to worship, you do that, forget all that. Forget your offering. Don't even bring it. Go get that issue resolved. That's more important. Okay? That's much more important. How are you going to, which actually goes back to this, where were we? Here we go. Content with yourself. See, how are you going to be content with other people if you're not content with you? So you've got to resolve these conflicts as much as you're able to do. Paul says, as much as it depends on you, live in peace. Go resolve that conflict. Face it. Ask God for wisdom so that you handle it properly, which rolls into the next one. Start with your own confession. Start with your own confession. What does that mean? That means don't go into the situation when you have conflict with people in life attacking them. Well, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be in this situation to begin with. How far does that go? Not far. Because what are they going to do? They're going to become defensive, right? They have their own reasons why they're upset, and those reasons are justified in their mind. And you have your reasons, and they're justified in your mind. So you're at this impasse. But if you're willing to be humble and wise, then you're going to be willing to look at your own weaknesses and say, you know something, I know that I'm capable of this. So
where it tells you to take the beam out of your own eye before
you take the little splinter out of yours. Exactly. That's exactly right. He references that in here as well. Yep. That's a perfect verse. My dad tells a great story. When he was raising money, he was in the missions field, and he was raising money, and he was at a church speaking somewhere, and they had gone back about a year and a half later to that same church, and he was speaking again, and when he was done, some lady came up to him after service and went, you know something? You were here a year and a half ago, and I came up to you and introduced myself, and I spoke to you, and you just totally ignored me and walked away, and you didn't even give me the time of day, and I can't believe that you're a man of God, and you're and she goes into this big rant, right? So my dad listened to her and let her finish what she was saying, and then he said to her, you know something? That sounds exactly like something I would do. Would you please forgive me for that? She didn't know what to say. What did he do? He took all the wind out of her sails. He robbed her of the ability to attack him anymore. He says, if you talk to him about that story, I have no idea who that woman was. I don't remember her. I know what it was. She was talking to my mother, and my dad came up and told my mom, come on, we got to go. And he interrupted that conversation and hurried her away. That's what it was. And he's like, yeah, I know I'm a guy that can do that. That sounds like my personality. That sounds like something I would do, absolutely. So I don't remember that. I don't know who you are, but you're probably right. So why argue about it? See? That's smart, dude. That's wisdom right there. That's wisdom. And he started with his own confession. Not going to fight with you about it. Guys, listen, I'm going to tell you, I've gotten myself out of more pickles. And I'll tell you this, even in professionally. I've had situations where I've taken over projects. Sometimes I've made a mistake. I've got an inspection. And the inspector's going, well, you know. And then they get real. Inspectors, if you're an inspector, Coke knows more about this than I. home inspectors, these guys come in, and a lot of them, not all of them, there's some really good guys out there, but there's these guys once in a while who have the mighty pen and the mighty power. And they love to exercise that, okay? And I learned with these guys real early, if I want to get a past inspection, kindness is the best way to do that with those guys. I don't care how wrong they are. And I tell them, I know, I agree with them all the time. This is totally messed up. Yeah, I know, I agree with you completely. And here's the reason why, but I'm not making excuses, I'm just telling you, this is the reason why, and I absolutely agree with you. So I'm going to make sure that's really fixed the next time we're going to get that taken care of. And I have a schedule to meet, so, okay, well, I'll tell you what, you take pictures of it for me and send them to me. I'm going to give you 24 hours to get that done. I'm going to go ahead and sign off today. But if I don't get those pictures from you, no problem. And I take pictures of the repair and get it to them in time, and everything's fine. But I don't argue. I don't tell them they're wrong. Even when they are wrong, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I have guys that get mad. They get so mad at these inspectors. They scream and yell and cuss and fight with them. I'm like, what are you doing? You just blew your own schedule, man. Who cares if they're wrong? Pride, I gotta, Okay, so then we're getting to some of that too. Okay, so start with your own confession. Then listen to their pain and perspective. Yes, I know, you are the smart one. Listen to their pain. Oh, you just don't know, Dwayne, how bad it is. It doesn't. When you start with your own confession and then you listen to their pain and perspective, what's the message that they get? Yes. You're showing them respect. You're telling them that you care. Yeah. A phrase that I have used for a lot of years professionally, and he used it in this video. He quotes, and I'm forgetting the person who said it originally, one of the early church fathers. But it was, seek first to understand and then be understood. Seek first to understand and then be understood. We're so busy going into it with, here's my opinion, and here's what I think we should do, and here's what I think of you, and here's what I think the problem is, and here's me. Well, you understand, they got the same attitude. They want it to be all about them. So if you can check your ego at the door for 10 minutes, and just sit down, shut your mouth, and open your ears, and go, what's the problem from your side of it? Let me hear what you have to say. I want to know how you see this. And just let them vomit. And I don't care how ugly it gets, and I don't care how bad the names are that they call you, and I don't care how they cuss you out, or I don't care, none of that. Just let it go right by. Just let it go. Let it go right by you. Boom, boom, boom. And then when they finally run out of steam, then you could say things like, yeah, it sounds like something I do. Or, man, I am so glad you shared that with me. That is, I hadn't thought about that, or hadn't seen it that way. Even if you shine them on a little bit. Even if you're seething inside going, how could you possibly say that? That's not true. That's not the way that happened. Who cares? It's just like with Josh last night. You can sit there and argue with Braden all night long. What's that going to do to change Braden? Nothing. So where's the value in that? Richard, did you have a thought?
I've taught salespeople for 25 years, and I found that the most successful salespeople are the ones that have learned. They've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and they use them in that proportion.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
I think the other part was that we were thinking about last time, Pastor Mike went over like a list of how to deal with difficult people, and we were thinking, one thing that we also could apply talk about is, we realized that you might actually be a difficult person to others. So certainly, like is a point of wisdom, even if you're right in a little. But I think another part of humility is saying, and I might actually be wrong. Just the possibility of that is humility. So listen and respect it is not only diffusing and wise, but it's also like, seriously, I might actually possibly be wrong in this situation.
I can tell you this. After 16 years of marriage and family counseling and, also personally all the work I've done on me, and being a dominant personality who tends to be that difficult person, 9 times out of 10 or more, you're wrong in the thing somehow. You're wrong in that situation somehow. You have violated a truth. You have wronged this individual. You have called a name. You have been insensitive. You've done the opposite of one of these. Something has happened that you've been wrong about. Guaranteed. There's always going to be exceptions to that. But, especially if you have a regular relationship with this person, somewhere along the line, you've done something. So, it's not a difficult leap to make to say, maybe I've been difficult. Maybe I've done something wrong here. Maybe I'm the person that we should be shining the light on. Because there's something in there. And that's why when you're listening to them do their little rant, you're also listening for, what is it that I can get out of this about me? Speak the truth tactfully. One of the weaknesses of my personality is that I'm usually right. And I know that sounds arrogant, but it's true. I know. But let me explain to you something. I don't make it a habit of stepping out there unless I really, really know that I'm correct about what I'm going to do or say. I research, I take the time, I still fail and I'm still wrong about stuff. So I'm not saying that I'm never wrong. But I am saying that I have learned to keep my mouth shut unless I know that I know that I know that I know. And then even then I know there's a possibility I'm still wrong. And I find that if I am really, really, really sure before I say or get involved or do or whatever, then I reduce the amount of times that I am incorrect. That's probably the iPad or something. So what that means is on the front end of things, before you open your mouth and say stuff, you make sure that you know what you're talking about and that you're correct.
What if the guy you're talking to or the girl thinks the same way you just said?
Right. So here's where I'm going with that. That's where this word tactfully comes in.
Yeah, right.
Because the next step is, even though I'm correct, and this is where the weakness comes in. Okay, the weakness isn't that I'm always right. I'm not always right, but I'm usually right. But that's because I bother to make sure that I'm right before I do or say whatever I'm going to do or say. Because I don't like to be embarrassed and be the stupid one in the group. So I like to make sure first. But the weakness part comes in when I take the position that, but I'm right and you're wrong, and duh. So here's the way I say it. My personality may be, because there's more than one person like me with this personality type. I may be technically correct, but tactfully incorrect or tactfully wrong. So in other words, all my information may be accurate and correct, but nobody cares because I'm rude about it. Because I'm obstinate, because I'm arrogant, because of all those things. That's what's driven me and helped me create statements like when I stand up here and say, don't ever disagree with me. But don't agree with me either, because I understand that we get into that, it's just about our opinions, and it doesn't matter what the truth is anymore. And that's not what's important. My opinion isn't important. It took me a long time to get to that place. For years and years and years and years and years and years, my opinion was really, really, really important to me. Nobody else cared. And even if I was right, they still didn't care. Nobody cares. Do you guys understand that? Nobody cares about you and your opinion. Do you realize that? That's right. That's what?
I think you've done too much marriage counseling.
Nobody cares about you and your opinion. And the sooner you reconcile with that, the easier your life's going to be. So, once I've listened to them rant and give me their perspective and tell me all their woes and why they hate me and why I'm wrong and all that stuff, And remember last week we learned about not being offended? Don't get offended. If you don't want your little feelings to get hurt, stop having little feelings. How about that? If you don't want someone to get your goat, kill that goat. Then there's no goat to get. Right? They're not stringing you along anymore. Stop being offended. Be adults. People are going to say things that are rude and unkind. Get over it. Focus on what their situation is, and then even if you are right, be tactful with that when you present that with them. Yes, Alicia.
Part of that is being able to contact and talk with difficult people is to just realize they're going to be difficult. They're not going to agree with anything you say.
Yep.
And you just have to go in there and just think about facts and not feelings. You have to suppose you enjoying like that joke and sending hills.
Right. Kill the goat. Well, what? Let's.
Something kind of like you have to talk to this person. You just have to realize they are going to.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I want to modify that just slightly. Killing the goat isn't about not having feelings. Killing the goat is about not having sacred cows.
Right. It's like sacrificing
This,
that
yeah.
and being like,
This isn't.
matter to
I'm
me.
choosing to not make that important. Yes, I'm choosing not to make that important. That's different than not having the feelings, because when I don't have the feelings, then I'm not able to do this. I'm not able to be compassionate and sensitive, and see that we can't remove the feelings out of this scenario. That's what makes the thing complicated, because
Or maybe I mean remove the drama out of it.
yeah. So it.
Still titrate feelings.
There you go.
Channel.
There you go. Let's say it like this. Let's choose what we're going to respond to emotionally a little differently than we have before. I don't want to respond emotionally to their attack of me. I want to respond emotionally to being sensitive to where they're at. And I understand, and when I reconcile with myself that they don't have to like me, I don't have to be right. None of that's important anymore. That sacred cow, that goat is gone. It doesn't matter. Then when I do this with them, they're not expecting that. Then all of a sudden, they're a little more willing to listen to this, and then I'm surprised. Lowered expectations, right? Lower those expectations, and then you're not as disappointed. Yes?
The best boss I ever had once told me, is that the hill you want to die on?
Yeah, I ask myself that question all the time. Is that the hill I want to die on? Yeah, very important. Okay, next we have fix the problem. Fix the problem, not the blame. Fix the problem, not the blame. See, one of the things that we have on this dying on the hill thing is that if you just understand my side of it, then you'll get it. You've got to remember, though, nobody cares about your side of it. They don't care. They only care about their side of it. Okay? So get past that. That allows you not to be a blame fixer. Okay? Fix the problem. That's sort of a, I don't know, in my opinion, he contradicts himself with the next one. Well, let me show you why. Because I got to have this conversation with both going on. The last one is focus on reconciliation, not resolution. Okay, so here's what that means, and here's what he proposed on the video. Reconciliation is focus on the relationship. Resolution is focus on the problem. So here he says fix the problem, not the blame. But here he says don't focus on the problem, focus on the relationship. So to me, that's contradictory. But there's truth in that. So let's look at that a little closer. The idea here with fix the problem, not the blame, is get away from the blame and focus on this. We have an issue with each other. And I'm not here to blame you for that issue. I want to get that resolved. Okay? Here's the way I say it. The problem is not your problem. Your response to the problem becomes your problem. How do you want to respond to this issue? If your response is to blame, then you're just going to fight. That's all there is to that. That's not deep psychology. You don't have to have a doctor's degree to know that. If you're going to go here, then you're just going to fight. Okay? Now, if you like to fight, great. Blame away.
Some cases, you got to get away from that. I used to run a securities firm.
Yes.
Brokerage firm.
Okay?
Broker comes in, buys 1,000 shares instead of selling it to the client. Stock's down. He's lost $10,000 like that. He comes in. The wire operating's in the order. I didn't. The customer did. Oh, everybody's to blame except him. And we just lost a lot of money. Somebody's going to pay. Now,
Somebody.
you say, well,
Okay.
I'll take the problem and I'll pay. Or in this case, he's the one you got to put the blame on.
So tell me. Okay. So that's a great scenario. Now tell me the answer to this question. What's the difference between accountability and blame?
Not a lot.
I disagree. How many of you would agree with that there's not a lot of difference between accountability and blame? What's the difference?
Right.
Any- Yeah, it's the hot potato in the room. Right. There you go. Okay, so
Accountability, taking that
yeah,
responsibility.
and who wants to be responsible for losing all that money for somebody else? Not me. And apparently not him either. I don't know. Is that the way?
Well,
Okay.
so you have to deal with it right
Okay.
then. And you got to get the blame. And it was always
So-
always contributory negligence that others
You got it.
created to make it worse.
This-
but you have to go back to who originally
But this
created
is-
the problem and accountability. My opinion,
Yes.
is accountable.
Yes, and this is why we have a legal system. Because of that negligence and that accountability that's necessary, okay? But here's the difference between blame and accountability. Blame is simply an emotional outburst that points fingers towards people. This rarely has any facts or figures involved in it. Going back to what Alicia said, blame is just this emotional vomiting. You did, you said, I don't like you, why do you have to act like that? This goes down rabbit holes like crazy. Okay? This, going back to your scenario, should be easy to do because there should be checks and balances in place before we, okay, so it's like when my kids were little. I have dominant personalities for children. Okay? And my two older ones in particular, you sit down and you play a game of sorry. Here's how that game goes. Pull the card, get a number, the number tells you how to move your pawn, right? Okay. My kid starts losing the game and then decides, well, wait a minute. I want to do it this way, Dad. What if we change, because if I got a 4, then I don't have to move backwards, do I? Okay, well, stop. Why are you attempting to change the rules in the middle of the game? Right? They want to play a card game. They're making the game up. Okay? So my kids love to do that. Well, I made up this game, Dad. Let's play this game. Okay, tell me how to play this game. They tell me how to play the game. We get in the game. I start winning. They go, wait, no, that's not how you play. Yeah, that became a rule in our house. If you want to play the game a certain way, you have to say that before we start the game. If you don't say it before we start the game, then we have to wait till that game is over. Then we'll play a new game, and we can put that rule in there. That's the difference with accountability versus blame. Blame is, you took my toy. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. You always take my stuff. I never take your stuff. What about the time you did? Okay, what's that got to do with this? Nothing. So, accountability, if true accountability, has set up the rules of the game, if you will, or the structure, before we start to play. Hopefully, in your scenario, that was already there. The SEC helps regulate that kind of stuff so that we get away from this and we stick with this. This is the emotional outburst. This is the legalities and the rules before we started the game that everybody agreed to before we started. This has to do with interpersonal relationship. This has to do with professional structures and so on. Now, you can put this into interpersonal relationship if you're wise. But a lot of times people don't like this because it's like when Linda and I got married, I sat her down and I said, wait a minute, why do you guys jump to the negative? I sat her down and said, okay, if we're going to be married for a long time, I think it's important that we agree on how to do that well. And she went, yeah, that makes sense. And I said, okay, one of the things that's really important to me is how do we raise our children? If you and I can't agree on that, then we're going to do nothing but fight the rest of our lives. And I don't want to fight with you. We've got to decide what we're going to believe as a faith. You know, if we can't agree on that, then we're just going to fight all the time about stuff. So we need to set the rules up before we get married. Here's what I think. What do you think? And we exchanged our ideas and we agreed on certain things. Didn't we do it that way, honey? Did I force you into that? No, see? You guys jumped to the negative. But we... Okay. Yeah, Linda's more flow with and I'm more planning, so I kind of forced the issue because I said, let's plan this out. But I didn't tell her what she was supposed to believe. So let's agree, let's make sure we agree before we get started. There's accountability, so that 15 years down the road, when we run into a problem and start fighting, I go, whoa, let's go back to the beginning. Remember we agreed to this? Or she can go, wait, remember we agreed to this? Does that make sense? That's the difference. Okay, yes. All right? So am I, but that's okay.
Taking the point of view, oh, my expectations are too high, thus I need to lower my expectations.
No, you didn't.
And if I lower my expectations, how do I keep it from being the gutter idiot that you want my
Okay, let me clarify. That's a great question. I did say lower your expectations, but if you lower your expectations, how do you keep yourself from being part of the drudgery of life, right? Okay, that's an excellent question. Let me clarify my statement. I didn't say lower your expectations for yourself. I said lower your expectations for others. In the same way I told that to my son, because my son is expecting his friend to rise to an occasion that his friend is not capable of rising to. And the reason he's not capable of rising to that is because those are circumstances beyond Josh's control. Now, I have that expectation for my son, but see, I have input in that relationship. Okay? Here's what I do. Let me go back to the same situation with Braden. I say, Braden, last night I sat him down. Did you do this to Josh? Well, no. And Josh, yes, you did. Okay, Braden, did you do that? Well, okay, the hesitation tells me that you did. Did you or did you not? Well, yeah, I did. Okay. Then I launched into this 5-minute thing about we don't lie. That's called lying. We don't do that in this house. I don't tolerate that. Here's the consequences of that. You're going home if you lie to me. I will call your parents up and I will send you home. Because this is our house. I don't know what you do at your house, but in our house, this is what we do. Okay? So we set those kinds of expectations in the house. I don't think it's too high of an expectation for me to say to this boy, don't lie to me. Okay. And the great news is at that age, they tell on themselves. So when you figure it out, they think that you're just reading minds. It's like, how did he know? He's everywhere, right? Mom's got eyes in the back of her head and all that good stuff. But the reality of the situation is that you cannot control other people. Here, write this down real quick. I know we're over time, but you guys are doing so good today that I'm going to bless you some more. Ready? Here's 5 things that I can control. Write it down that way. 5 things that I can control. 5 things that I can control. Number 1, my thoughts. Number 2, my feelings. Number 3, my language. Number 4, my decisions. Number 5, my behavior. Okay? That's what you can control.